It's on. I can see it.
लाइट तो आ गई.
Okay.
All set. Working ना? ठीक.
Hello and welcome to the RebelCorp Summit.
Hello.
Hi. So welcome guys, we have some amazing guests here and everybody. So guys, everyone, welcome to our RebelCorp HQ. So this is where we are hosting our webinars and this is where we run all our operations as well. And we've got some amazing people coming to talk today. But before that, I am Akash Chaturvedi, founder and CEO here at RebelCorp. And joining me today is my buddy, my partner in crime, Saad, also.
Hey, buddy.
Here, the man who is there for day in and day out over here, doing some very, very exciting stuff and building RebelCorp here. And with us joining is two amazing, very special guests, all right, with Ruchika Srivastava and Mr. Naresh Mehta. Hi. So guys, they are amazing experts who are here to tell you how we can grow our business. But before we do that, on a short note, we would like to explain to you what is RebelCorp and what do we do. So for the next segment, I would request you guys to watch your screen for this. So guys, as you have come across, we are building at RebelCorp India's simplest all-in-one website builder. And basically the idea is with today's segment is not to really talk about our product or what is it that we're doing, but to come across some very interesting people who will show us just about how it is that their experiences in life have taught them and are going to give us advice from their learnings on what we can do about our businesses and how we should be thinking towards the future from their learnings in the past. So hence yesterday, today, tomorrow, the entire segment that we have today looks on the past of these amazing distinguished speakers of ours and, taking back from their life learnings, their incidents and how we as future entrepreneurs and like as colleagues, as freelancers, as all people can be thinking in terms of what is going to be our role going forward in terms of these things. So my first, thing is let's get down to from somebody who's had so much experience with Naresh sir, who's been at, the Raymond Group, Hidesign, have so much experience in the textile space and everything. So I think in your case now that with respect to what you're doing, you've got some really, really new businesses that you're working with. So all of what you've done probably in the past is something that is a learning for you to kind of get into this. So what I would like to ask you and address with you is, while people are building their businesses and everything, how do they, because it's so dynamic now, you have to pivot. Every day there's different things happening in every sector. And with technology at the center, how do people really understand what business they are in?
Okay, so Akash and Saad, thanks for having me here in this inaugural webinar for Well, and nice to share space with Ruchika.
Likewise.
I'm looking forward to learning a few things from all of you also. And Akash, thank you also for bowling me a first ball yorker. Yeah, because I was told that it's going to be a very nice conversation on a Saturday morning, and suddenly I am being told, what's the business you are in? Now, this is something which nobody really pauses to think about. We just get going, and somewhere down the line, we realize, what is it exactly that we are doing. So, if you trace back some of the largest corporations of the country, of the entire world, you will realize that invariably all stories start with a product. So there is a very passionate person, he's passionate about a certain product or an idea, he gets going. And at that time, nobody really, stops him and asks, hey, what business you are in? Because he's not even thinking business, he's thinking product, right? I don't know how many of you have seen this ad by Jaguar, which is running on TV,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where the customer, this guy who says, I'm doing Jaguar, and the guy is actually thinking, yaar, ye, living room mein and conference room mein Jaguar ka fittings kaise karega?
That's right.
And then you realize that we so strongly identify that Jaguar means bathroom fittings.
Right.
We can't even imagine it is anything other than that. So this question of yours, Akash, is like that, where you're saying, hey, pause and think, what business are you in?
Right.
Now, invariably, when you connect all the dots, you will reach a conclusion that you are in the business of actually serving customers. Okay, but I think Ruchika is far more qualified to talk about that. So let me talk about things that happen behind the scenes. Yeah, for example, invariably, there is this whole thing that there's a lot of people coming to work. There are factories. There's a lot of activity going on. Products get churned out. Warehouses are full. Distribution happens. Stuff reaches the stores. Customers come and buy. And then you pause and you say that, what is happening? Nothing. Everything is on autopilot. Today, FMCG, autopilot. Okay. I don't think anybody even sits and forecasts how much detergent do we make. We just make. And when we feel, we set up one more factory and one more factory. So really, I think except for somebody who's starting new, you really don't pause and say, what is the business we are in? I was also like that, having worked in legacy companies like Hidesign and Raymond, where you actually bolte hai na, that you get onto a running train.
Right.
You don't ask, bhai, ye gaadi kahan ja rahi hai? You are onto the running train. But after that, when I broke out from there and became an entrepreneur and a consultant to a lot of SMEs, during one of these VC conferences, it really hit me, because the first thing that the VC asked is, what is the pain or the need that you are addressing?
True.
And if your answer to that question was good, you got funded, right?
Yeah.
So that's dramatically very different from, मैं फैक्ट्री लगाऊंगा, मैं ट्रक भर भर के माल बनाऊंगा, मार्केट में डालूंगा, मैं 12,000 स्क्वायर फीट की मॉल खोलूंगा, right? So I think till now we've always focused on the activity, but now the times are such that you are told what is the outcome that you, and that is where you say that finally your business, what is the need or what is the pain that it is addressing,
Right.
but it doesn't stop there. The next part of it is that how do you want to address it? Because today the Olas of the world have shown us, okay, how a need can be fulfilled by a team of 12 people, and it can run such a massive scaled up business.
Right.
And I think that is where Rebel and
Right.
technology comes into the picture, and you realize that sitting in a room like this, you can actually do a multi-million-dollar business
Absolutely.
with a team of empowered people.
True.
And you don't have to worry about how many trucks are leaving the warehouse, what is happening where, but you only have to focus on one, the customer who's being served, how well he's being served, and what more you can do for him.
Absolutely. So that's a very interesting. You have any thoughts to add
I
on to
agree
this?
with him on almost everything that he said, and I think when I started out my career about 16 years ago, I was at the fag end of when we believed that marketing was really just all about like put an ad in the newspaper, put up a couple of hoardings, and a lot of the communication was very traditional. And let me just tell you, when I started working, there was no such thing as Facebook, and it only happened later. And I remember that when we wanted to move one of our Future Group brands onto Facebook, they just let us do it because it's these young people want to do something interesting. We don't really know what Facebook is and what it could be, and we moved, right. But obviously from then until now a lot has changed. businesses have changed, consumers have changed, what consumers are exposed to have changed, right? And expectations from consumers from products and services is far different than what it was 15 years ago. And they expect a lot, right? And yet they expect just very simple things. I think that when a business owner is starting out a business today, what's really important is to kind of wear the lens of the consumer. Across all my multiple roles, and that's actually been the most fascinating thing for me, is to understand the consumer deeply, right? uh, we all begin that way. We all start out creating businesses where we want to understand the customer, and then gradually we get into, like he said rightly, you get into the operations of things, right? And you sort of don't look at that part anymore. And I think it's important to every now and then go back and say, what is the consumer thinking about now? So I think that in new age businesses today, compared to the traditional 4Cs, what's really important is that one, businesses have clarity in terms of, like exactly as you said, what problem are you solving for the customer, right? It's not about saying, here, this is a product that I can offer. I think those days are gone when companies say, this is my product, you buy. Because there are multiple options, right? And you have to tell the consumer in all the clutter and the hundreds of brands that come up every day, on the web, why your product is going to be of greater value to them, right? So it's important to show them the value. Even in terms of the way you see the customer today, right? 15 years ago, we used to talk about like, hey, what's your TG? It's 18 to 24. It's SECA. It's these cities, these demos. And I think that's changed, right? What's important now is to actually understand the persona of your customer and is to go deeper, because we can't any longer do carpet bombing of our communication, because that really is not a very effective way to communicate anymore, because it's a one size fits all approach and that age is over, right? The other important thing is consistency. I think what a lot of brands tend to do is they don't constantly evolve, and yet at the same time don't have a very consistent messaging. So you need to keep telling the consumer what you believe in. So you can't do like one campaign in spring, summer, and then the next campaign in autumn, winter. It doesn't work like that anymore. Yeah. You need to have a relationship with your customer. You need to keep them engaged at all times, because we are in an age where the memory span of a consumer for a brand is very limited, right? They are bombarded, and that's one thing we need to be careful about. So you have to constantly be there. You need to communicate. You need to engage. You need to be a brand that really cares about the consumer and is actually eventually building a sense of community. They need to believe in what you're doing, and you need to understand them to kind of have that connection. So a lot has changed, and I think that these are the times really where you start to look at data more, and don't just follow your gut. Earlier you could have one approach and you could do that for years and it would work, and now you just have to be constantly evolving.
I think that's one of the most interesting things that come across, right? Because today, as a brand, no matter what you're doing, there's so many digital touch points, and it's so important not to overuse a particular medium. Absolutely. Or like not bombard, or be able to kind of just focus down to how and what you communicate where with each consumer. That's also so understanding across the spectrum. There's so many different things to look out. So now another thing that I feel I would like to bring out, especially having you on with our expertise, is what you pointed out with customers. So people need to really go around, you've taken different approaches in the past of actually able to hit every customer. So how do you understand who are your customers, actually the ones you want to reach, even with today's day and age and with having so many different options and all that? Right. So like, how is your approach on that? How do people identify them?
So I think that if one is setting out on a business, right, and is trying to really say, okay, this is the business that I'm going to be in, I think the important thing to understand, like I said earlier, is what is the problem you're solving, and is that problem big enough? If that problem is big enough and there's an addressable market for it, then that's a good business to go after. It's also important to understand the many ways that that customer will use your product, and it needs to be simple. I think one of the things we do very often is we get into this, like I generally say, how parents are like, my child is the best. Businessmen try to do that with their products, saying my product is the best, and then you get so like in love with it that you actually lose sight of the fact that it's complicated for the consumer. So keep it really simple, keep things one or two steps. And when you've been able to identify that, I think it's important to know where to find your customer, and that's only by understanding their personas, right? Now there are two ways to do this. One is to just look at what are the tangible benefits of your product, and say, okay, these are the most obvious consumers, but also look at the intangible benefits of your product or your service, right? Because to the consumer, buying into any idea is also rational as well as emotional. So you need to know what balance you want to play, and you kind of play that balance. So at the end of it, they want to seek value for money. It's both rational and emotional, right? Like, let's just take a example, right? Like, look at, you go to a mobile store and you have an option to buy a 50,000 rupee fab phone that has all these great, like, 3 cameras and blah, whatever, a bunch of like features, and you have an Apple iPhone that costs maybe like 4 times. And what do you pick, right? So eventually you pick something that's going to make you feel good about having it. So I mean, I know I've been an Apple user for the longest time, right? For over a decade, and I would never switch to an Android, because for me it's convenience. It's about, it's always it has great quality photos. It serves me right, and somehow it just makes me feel like I'm using something that's best in class, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the emotional benefit that it gives me. But the rational benefit is probably comparable to another phone that's maybe 1/3 the price. But so you need to know as a business what is the benefit that you want to play up and find your consumers there. So if you ask me, in the digital world, it's important that you understand personas really well. It's important that you understand where you'll find them geographically. It's important that you understand what are the attributes and what are the other things that they're interested in. So let's say if you're talking to a young consumer, then they're probably also interested in travel. They're probably also interested in music. They're probably also interested in like certain leaders, right, that are inspirational or motivational. And that's where you begin to sort of find interested users and communicate with them. It sounds easy, but it's not. It's not too complicated either. It's an evolving process. You need to. I think the beauty about digital is that you can start out small, and very quickly you can discover whether it's working for you or not. And when it's not working for you, you pivot.
Yeah.
And that's what today marketing should really do, versus just having one strategy that's planned out at the beginning of a financial year and follow through.
Also,
I think
another fundamental shift, taking up from what you said, there was a time when brands and companies actually exert and spend a lot of money and come up with brilliant marketing campaigns to bring the customer up to their level.
Right.
I think today the fundamental shift is that companies and brands need to actually go to where the customer is physically and mentally and help them to connect. And I think that's a big change where a lot of people have actually still not realized. So even today when you see, people say that 20% of marketing budgets are now shifting to social media. Why 20? It should be 98%. Right? Because today what are hoardings going to really do for you? So I'm saying even now when the realization has come, the shift is happening so slowly because we are all conditioned that way. Right? And the other thing that happened, of course, is COVID. So what COVID has forced all of us to do is, as I say, consumption is happening alone.
Right.
So today you watch a movie not with 500 people in the multiplex. By now you're sitting and watching
It's on
Netflix. And there are families where you have 4 members, 4 watching different stuff on their mobiles. Okay?
All at the same
So
time.
how, all at the same time. And they could be watching the same movie.
Right.
But it's a very individual experience. Okay. So how do you really get into this whole concept of you becoming an integral part of their life? So today you're no longer outside their life, you're in their life, and it's almost like earlier there would be a family discussing baहर खाना जाने का है, कहाँ जाएंगे, ये होटल में जाएंगे. Today what happens? I'm hungry. Swiggy, Zomato, Italian, Mexican, tak.
And just check it out.
So who is the one holding their hand? Right? It's technology. Because then, Swiggy is sending you a message, somebody is telling you this, somebody is telling you that. The most important thing that's happened today is, one is this whole need-based thing. So there is a need, you address it, the traditional level. Another way is where you actually look at something like a DO market. Okay. Frankly, a functional thing about a DO is about our climate. Right. But if you really see the way the products have been positioned, it's completely different. So starting from a time that you use DO, you become attractive to the opposite sex to a point where इसमें gas है कि perfume to a latest thing that's running now, which is absolutely brilliant. Okay, which actually has changed and it reflects the way society is. So there's a time when guys would stand and ogle at girls, and now you see girls chatting about guys and then saying, "Oh यार मैं perfume नहीं लगाता तो वो out of reference है."
That's right.
The reality is that brands have actually not realized, and customers have evolved faster.
That's true.
And in many cases, brands are playing catching up with the customers.
Yeah, because if only Dios help men get women, then
Yeah,
it would be
Yeah, that was so
simple. Yeah.
traditional, and today you see how dramatically it's changed.
Yeah.
And I specialize more in fashion retail,
Right.
and there are countless number of times when women walk up to a store and say, "ये है, ऐसा कुछ है," and the shopkeeper says, "नहीं यार ये नहीं है," so she's like,
Yeah.
you're
That's
not in
true.
sync with times. You don't know what my need is.
That's
And this
right.
applies to innerwear, outerwear, winterwear, party wear, whatever category, men, women,
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. In fact, one of the interesting points he talked about was, instantly wanting to be gratified, right? And that's what's changed so much. Because today, the time between you wanting a product and making the purchase could actually be only 30 seconds, right? Because you're consuming everything online. So I'll take a very simple example. At one point in time, I said, "Hey, I've been targeted by this brand called Neiman's, which is a fabulous brand, by the way.
Yeah.
And I think the products look interesting, but I never did really have a need for sneakers.
Yeah.
And I already have too many. I don't use them enough. But this one time I said, I want something light. I want something that's breathable, summer friendly. Let me check out Neiman's, right? And it really just took me over a minute to kind of decide that I wanted it.
Yeah.
So on my digital platform, it's continued to be there in front of my eyes time and again, and I've swiped right. I've never really kind of looked at the website. But because I've seen it so often, it's in my consideration set. And when it came to the time to make that purchase, all I did was go on there. I said, okay, this color looks interesting. I've looked at the features. I think that's fab. And I've bought the product. It's a great product, right? But that's the other thing that's changed, right? From the time that a consumer wants a product to the time that they buy, that gratification period is so tiny. Versus earlier, there was a lot of the simpler products had so much high involvement and there was so much consideration to actually buy it. And it very often used to be like, we used to ask somebody, should I buy this outfit? Should I buy this shoe? But now that doesn't happen. A lot of our choices now are individual. A lot of the decisions we take are also based on our individual whims. And I think that's drastically changed over the last 2 years, especially with the whole boom of D2C brands.
Yeah.
I think in another way also the only people, like, I think from your experience, or you all tell me, is that traditional retail in a way are the guys who can do what Neiman's and all these guys are doing, trying to go digital, because it's so accessible. Actually, what you said, the best part about digital today, is that it is so affordable that everyone can do it, and it's not people who are sitting anywhere. It's your traditional guys. Like, if I want to buy a piece of clothing, why don't I go to the person who's closest to me? Even he needs to be able to go and have that digital access. And today, I think we are at a stage with technology where most of the things are so easily available. We just need to start thinking along those lines as well. And just seeing that, if I keep that door and digital channel open for myself, what could it potentially do? And it starts with simple things. And I think on our next thing, what we want to actually highlight is actually show you some of the great, phenomenal rebels of ours who are our very proud customers. Who is in our next segment. We're going to highlight a couple of them and show what their impact has been and how they've been using the product. So even when we were working on everything, we never thought of people being able to do these kind of things with it. And it's been phenomenal to watch. So I'll very quickly take you guys through some of the ones that we have here for us today. So today, first one which is there is a very special client of ours. So a very special client who's there, from all the way in America. So these are basically just stories that I'm going to very easily walk you guys through. What exactly has conspired with these guys also in terms of their businesses and everything, and how they're doing everything as of now. So first one's who's there is OCI Card Services. Now this person is so phenomenal as a story. He's based out in Chicago, and he does these things called card servicing. OCI. I don't know if you guys have come across.
I'll give a brief about what OCI is. So OCI is basically overseas citizenship identity cards. So these cards really didn't play an important role till the pandemic came into existence. Okay. So after the pandemic, what people there was this thing which was a mandatory thing for all the residents staying in the states. For them to come to India, this was a mandatory thing for them to have an OCI card. So this came into existence post the pandemic, and after this, there was no one who was really very familiar with the steps to basically get you registered to get that OCI card. And our cool customer, as we know, Mr. Shashank, started his whole thing of getting people their OCI cards. Okay, and the process was very easy, but then it was at the same time slightly tricky because the documentation required, and it was a big long list, as we know. To get all these cards made, you need to have certain requirements, certain documentations, and that too.
A lot of uploading, basically.
And that too in a very structured way. So Mr. Shashank thought of doing this for all his friends, all his relatives out there who had a big circle, and he was into a business which was always dealing with a lot of people around him. So he had a good connection of like Indians staying abroad overseas. So that's when he came up with this idea. As soon as he thought of this idea, he started doing it with his like in person with people who were near to him. But for him, he wanted to scale his business. That's when he realized he needed something where he could collect data from his consumers in a very easy way. That's when he got in touch with us, and here we are. So what we did was we created a simple mini website for him, which just costed him ₹799 a month. And my God, after that,
That's
Akash,
phenomenal.
You said 799.
₹799
not
a month for him who stays in the States. For him, it was like
That's
a few dollars a
phenomenal.
month. And post that,
He's taken it to another level, so we never imagined how much, just 2 pages.
That's cheaper than dinner.
Yeah, so no, that's 2 pages, and he's used forms and he's automated the process. And for him, he's a one-man team. He scales like he does 100 people every month because the process is he's designed it to go online. So it is the most amazing use of our product. It uses automations. There's stuff wherein he takes one document, you upload the next. It's so well figured out, beautifully built. And like if anybody's out there ever in need of these
OCI
services,
cards.
do check it out because it's so phenomenal in the terms of how it's entirely built. Also, just as an idea, in terms of what design doesn't have to be much, but it's just there.
From ₹799 a month to 79,000 a month. That's what he's done. From $10
That's
to a
fab.
few $1,000s.
That's fab.
That's what he does.
Yeah.
So that's how powerful we are in terms of like providing our solutions, and our mini website doing a lot in terms of just scaling your business in a very effective way. So that's what RebelCorp
I
is all
think that's
about.
very interesting, and I think that if RebelCorp is able to make the process easy for people and kind of eliminate the need to have a one-on-one connection with the person to do something like as simple as uploading documents, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. Our next one who we're going to do a very, a really amazing case study and a little work on was actually a much bigger, different size company. It's a company called Prozone Into. They're into real estate. Prozone malls are very famous around the cities of Aurangabad, Coimbatore. But in essence, it's not traditionally a technology business. But over the pandemic, I think what's happened is a lot of businesses have had this thing, especially in retail sectors such as this. You must have seen that they've had, your malls have come to a standstill, your everything. So at that point, you really have to think about survival. And then when it comes to that, I think we've got some really kind words from the CFO, Anurag, because in terms of what he's been able to do with the help of this technology, right? They're not a tech company, but they have to be agile and tech, because at the end of the day, when the malls and all go, what you're left with is a identity, because you still have that connect with people. They associate you, and to be able to take that transition digitally, I think the way they've done it has been phenomenal. They've been performing really, really well. This site, I think, gets some 50,000 visitors every month, just on one mall site. So they've been able to take that traffic of 1 million footfalls on the actual mall to 50,000 every month, and it's going to be growing quite a bit with the help of their technology, and doing all of this, by the way, without a tech team.
Oh, fabulous.
That's
And
what.
I think it's such a
And that's why
great
he's the
support
one who's
to
given us some really kind words, because it's for him, it's as a company who has that ability wherein the people who are associated with the task, the people on site need to have that control and to be able to do something on their own.
And it was always thought that a mall and online can never coexist. In fact, I always thought that they are conflicting. I think there's a unique example of where it can help each other.
Yeah.
So now, not really operating like a tech company earlier, they now fully function like a tech company without any tech expertise involved. So that's how it is.
All right. Getting back now to our segment here, we have so next few things that we're going to bring up is a couple of things leading to our next things, which is with respect to coming back to our discussion on how businesses, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. From your learnings, everybody, who's watching in will be kind of trying to ask these questions as well. Another challenge I actually want to point out for businesses when they start is the obstacles and challenges that they face along while trying to market, while trying to build a product and deliver unique customer service for their product or their experience, whatever they're doing. Coming here back to Ruchika, in terms of how you've taken, with respect to from your learnings, you've seen a lot of different sectors of business, and at different stages as well of digitalization. So from that point of view, where did you feel the challenge and obstacles come? Because when we tend to start doing things, right, even when we are so big, the important thing is to have that flexibility to scale. You must be in control that you control the business that you run, not the other way around.
Absolutely.
So where, in terms of how you've seen that in your experience, please enlighten us with, your things on these.
I'd say, and when I think about it, I think it's been such an amazing learning, and I'm so glad to have been part of it. I've spent a lot of my career with Future Group, right? Future Group is one of the leading retailers and has multiple formats, large and small, and it's always been ahead, whether it was in terms of creating the big day sales or whether it was creating consumption, allowing India that was sort of not really exposed to a lot of brands and products to have access to that and to live a better life. They've really played a huge role. So one of the key learnings actually at Future Group was always to be close to the customer, right? And we were always encouraged to spend time at the stores to actually understand how people shop, when they're shopping, what are the things they consider. Sometimes, when they could be buying something as simple as a pan, they'd be like, this pan is great, but it seems light, so it's not good. So it's the way consumers think, it's about the notions they have about product, right? Simple stuff like that. And gradually today we're in a place and a universe, a marketing universe, which is so digitally forward, right? Yeah. Now, typically what one would have done earlier to discover a brand would have been to go out and look for it, or to look in a newspaper and see which are the big brands that are advertising and create perception about the brands there. But today, the internet and a quick Google search is everything we need to know about everything, right? The one thing that we learned is, while earlier we physically went to the stores and understood the customer, very quickly we realized that it was important to actually know the consumer really well. So we started to ensure that we understood who they were, where they came from, and started to actually pick up data even in offline stores, right? So it was not just something that you were doing in digital businesses, but you started that offline and then began to track things like what are they consuming, start to look at data saying, now that I know the consumer, now that I know where they come from, which pin code they come from, and these are the trends that I see of consumers in this pin code, here's how I understand the market better. And I think the big learning really is that get into the details, right? I think we've moved away from an economy where you're like, I kind of know what is working, let's just go ahead and do it. I'd say we've moved to a point where 95% of your decision making is data and 5% is still intuition and gut, right?
That's true.
That comes from experience. But I'm saying that data really right now is the backbone of decisions that marketing should be taking, and understand your consumer, understand the intent, how they are viewing your product. Use effective tools, whether you're using events on your website to kind of look at the various places that they're clicking. You're looking at how they're navigating through the website with Hotjar. You look at GA, look at where your consumers are coming from, look at how much time they're spending on your website. That itself is going to be a huge indication of whether they like what you're putting out there for them or not. If consumers are looking at multiple pages, then you're doing something right. Yeah. If consumers are spending over a minute, that's great. Right? And of course, this will change from business to business, and it will change from category to category. Fashion, for example, will have a much higher time spent on a website versus, say, a website that's doing fewer but very targeted products, right? But data really is the king right now, and there is no escaping. For any business to succeed, you need to understand where consumers coming from, what are they looking at, what are the decisions, or what are the steps in their decisions that are determining whether they choose you or they don't choose you.
As Ruchika rightly said, I mean, me and Akash also been really working hard with analyzing data. It really plays an important role in understanding a customer and the journey a customer goes through when he comes through your channel and through your platform. So I think I'm really very.
And it's so beautiful to see the tools. I mean, like the kind of things you were mentioning today. It's like you're operating with, like almost like with a cockpit of a pilot. You've got so much powerful every second. The kind of things you're able to capture on, as long as you get them onto your identity. I think it's phenomenal. But like, I would also like to know, Naresh, your thoughts on when you came, like from the when you were doing it earlier on, right, in the different ways, when you had to scale down your processor or you have to manage how it's actually and track this kind of stuff, what are the approaches and obstacles from that perspective as well? Like,
Okay, so let me share with you the story of a failure with one of my clients, because you learn as much from failure.
Yeah, 100%.
So it was in the edtech space.
Okay.
Yeah. And obviously, when you say edtech, it's technology-driven education service.
Right.
So logically, when you are scaling up an edtech company, you would use more and more of tech.
Right.
Okay, but this particular company was being driven by a team of old technology mindset people.
Yeah, understand.
So they went about it the FMCG way.
Okay.
That we need to have so many feet on the street. Suppose we want to have a product sold in Maharashtra. So there are 36 districts in Maharashtra. So this, and therefore I need to have 200 people in the streets selling my product and trying to convert students.
Physical salesman.
Physical sales, feet in the street, FMCG thinking, put onto edtech.
Oh.
Whereas edtech is always about DTA, download the app.
Yeah.
We have examples of a Beju and a lot of other people doing that.
Absolutely.
So what happens is, when you bring an old world thinking into a new sunrise industry, you are going to fail. And obviously failure happened. Okay, so in my time, the thinking always used to be that any new business, any scaling up was always looked at as a distribution challenge. It was never even looked as, in terms of consumer and connecting with them. So then again, the discussions would be, India, big country, this, that, and the other. Truck takes 18 hours to reach. And today, what you're really saying is, there is the internet. There is all this stuff that Ruchika talks about, half of which I don't understand. Okay, but it's digital. So today, you can reach the customer.
Yeah.
Today, anybody can reach the customer. Yeah. So what is therefore the challenge? So today, what I see when I'm working with some of my clients, I tell them, look, you need to very quickly reach a stage where the customer can see you anywhere and buy you anytime. It's not necessary, okay, that when you see, you get the example of Neiman's on Insta, right? So today, Insta brands are absolutely roaring. And there are the old brands who are struggling. Okay,
that's true.
And so you find suddenly there's a brand on Insta, you do this and all that, and you suddenly realize that product you're using, and you didn't even realize how it happened.
Right.
Okay, while the other brands you think and you say, oh, I know this brand, dekhenge, karenge. So I think today the challenge is, and that's where I think technology is important. And what I've seen of Rebel, where it's putting you in control of what's happening, is very key. Because it's not necessary that when a customer sees you, the need is there and therefore he is going to buy. But there has to be a method by which you become a part of his reference set when the need arises.
100%.
Alternately, you really target him so well that you create a need which was so latent. But it's like, अरे यार, हाँ है शादी है एक महीने बाद, but you suddenly say, यार ये तो बहुत अच्छा शेरवानी है.
But yet
so I buy it
buy
now.
it. But
I buy it now.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think really the challenge is, and I think it's a huge opportunity where you need to control this entire step-by-step process from brand to consumer. You need to have control over it, right? Okay. There's a little bit of hand-holding. There's a little bit of typical marketing-driven pressure that you're creating. Okay, and then there is this whole thing about instant gratification and also a little bit of a discounting or an offer, which actually helps that call to action get converted. So I see today, that's the real world that we are living in.
So I actually think that's so powerful, right? Because today I can be a new consumer that comes onto a website. I show a little bit of intent, but the brand can actually, over a period of time, seeing that, listen, Ruchika has come to the website, she's added to cart but not shopped. Give me an incentive, like he said, a discount. But you don't really need to offer that upfront, right? So you're not screaming out 50% discount on your store facade anymore.
Right.
And you're not giving it to everybody who didn't even want it. And what's also important now that is you're actually working, every company is now looking at ROI, right? So I know that for each time I'm reaching a customer and I can actually see how many impressions I have, how many people have engaged with me, it's giving me far greater control. So I know what's working and what's not working. My ability to make decisions quickly and to pivot is far greater than I did before. Earlier, you decided to do an ad, you paid the publication upfront, and that money is gone. There's nothing you can do about it.
Just to add on that, the spends are again shifting from TV channels to OTT.
100%.
Because OTT gives you a clear ROI,
Absolutely.
which a TV can never give.
Never.
Right?
Yeah.
So that TV is important for your above the line thing and all
Absolutely.
that. But frankly, the more ROI driven spends are happening in OTT.
Absolutely, and I think it's giving marketers a great sense of control. And it's not like suddenly marketing is not like a marketing spends are not a black hole. So I know from the time like maybe 15-16 years ago, people used to look at people in marketing and say especially, no offense to the finance guys, but they'd be like, "Fir aa gaye marketing wale, check sign karane ke liye."
That's true.
But they used to just kind of look at you as an expense center. But now you're looked at as somebody who's driving growth, right? And that's the huge change that digital businesses have been able to create for themselves, is that their marketing is now seen as a growth function and not as an expense center.
More, I would say more than that, it's a strategic tool, Ruchika, where there are enough examples where, they say today that you can build a brand in 3 years. And if you can't, you're missing something, right? So who does that? It's marketing and it's digital. No doubt. We say 50% of consumer experience is product. The remaining 50, which used to be, as you said, black box and all, is very clearly defined. So if you come up with a very good product, the 4 C's are there, but the remaining 50% of the journey, if digital marketing can do, in 3 years you're a brand, okay, and you're a serious player. And examples like India, Family, okay, they've just numbers don't make sense anymore when you look at the way they have evolved, and they've hit numbers with brands who traditionally take 10, 12, 15 years of groping in the dark and figuring out where they are heading.
Right.
And you're talking about somebody like a Nykaa. It's a
Absolutely.
pure
Exponential
complete,
growth.
and that brings me to this point. This whole thing about the world you're living in is full of disruptions.
Right.
And I think most of the disruption can be traced either to product or to technology.
Absolutely.
Either of these,
I think technology also plays such a pivotal role in the process of how you take, and access your customers. Having that ability is where control becomes such a vital part. I think,
And how consumers are accessing you, right? There's this great two-way engagement now, which earlier the brand was communicating to the customer and not vice versa. So I think that also enables brands and businesses to get stronger.
I think that's one of the greatest things. So I mean, I don't know, like which I want to really discuss also on the last few things of our notes is that when you were doing things earlier in terms of control that you had over all spectrums of media, like in terms of even your past experience for that matter, how did it go about wherein you all were looking at so many different marketing channels working at once and actually kind of figuring out how do you have control on all of them, with respect to that, because there's so many things. I'm not even going to get into a thing like your ad campaign alone because you have so many things running parallel. So how do you effectively take control of all of the stuff that's happening,
Right.
What would you, even from a big, as a small brand's point of view, as well as the
This
biggest.
small brand had huge challenges even, trying to establish itself. That was a different struggle. But even if you look at big brands, it was so compartmentalized. So then you had a set of people who are actually trying to, market and promote. Then the guys who are actually doing the sales and that unending thing, as who's more important. Then you had these wonderful services of people who do market research, right? Who would then tell you how your product is doing, and this was all based on sample sets because you could never really access 100% of your.
And what a delay in the time till you get information.
And a lot of things which were inferences. So it's like this is what is observed, so the inferences is this, and therefore you are always living with uncertainty, and you never really knew what is happening. Compare that to today's environment where the feedback is almost instant. Okay, because if you started, let's say, a website or you started a digital channel, you can actually access, how many SMSs you sent, how many were actually opened, how many were seen, how much action happened, and what action happened. So it's instant feedback. Second, you have the database, the data that we talk about. So you can reach out to almost everybody. You don't have to wait for a sample thing.
Yeah.
Third, you don't have any third party interfering in the process.
Right.
Your interaction is between you and your consumer.
It's
There
direct.
is no third party coming in and
Absolutely.
applying their mind or any statistical methods and all of that.
Yeah.
So I think it's become that much more easier. But fact remains that you need to have an eye on it.
Yeah.
If you get lost in the operation part of it, I think then there is an issue. But if you have a team or a person actually focusing on that part, then there is constant feedback. In fact, in the fashion industry, you can get feedback so quickly that you can actually change your collection happening for the next season.
The forthcoming.
Or your size sets.
Or your size sets, or colors, or
Yeah,
whatever.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. I mean, this is something which is
Yeah, it's quite
new to me
exciting.
as well. I mean,
Earlier the marketing channels were honestly quite limited, right? You either looked at ads in
True.
newspapers or magazines, you looked at radio, you looked at like leaflets. Like, believe it or not, it was a thing, right? To put leaflets in newspapers.
And you would have
Yeah.
a coupon down.
Yeah.
Saying when you go, tear it and this.
Yeah,
and
give it at
then
the
you would
store.
collect the
So-
coupons and know how much of it has actually.
Absolutely, and the store would check how to redeem it, right? And I think about like 15 years ago, 12 years ago, there were things like national brands and local brands.
Yeah.
Mm.
The beauty of digital is there's no such thing,
Yeah.
right? That is it's bridged the gap. Now you could be sitting in like Batinda and you could be a national brand, right?
Yeah.
Because you are able to reach out to a customer all over the country. And to me, that's one of the biggest pluses, right, of digital is that people who have a great product and have the ability to scale no longer are limited by geographies. And I think that's a huge thing. Today, in fact, marketing has become a little bit more complex, but let me use the word creative.
Yeah.
Because you can actually use multiple channels. You can use your website effectively, and really your website, I'd say, is like the beginning and the end.
Right.
So either you kind of discover the product on the website and then you kind of chase the customer and bring the customer back, or you've spoken to the customer across multiple channels and brought them back to your website. But your website really is the moment of truth, right?
100%.
You can talk via influencers, you can talk via ads, you can talk via content. I think content is probably going to be the next biggest thing, and businesses should use
Right.
that very effectively on their own websites and across their social to make sure they can drive people
Yeah.
to consume, to
100%.
make that final checkout, because it's no longer just like one ad and saying buy my product for A, B, C and flat 30% discount.
Yeah.
I think you need to constantly keep talking to the consumer and in a way kind of tease them, lure them, romanticize the product with them, and then bring them back to you to kind of engage.
It's all about like evolving
Yeah.
the communication.
If I give one example of technology, one of
Yeah.
my clients who's in sportswear, okay,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so they have this amazing capacity they built up in Ahmedabad,
Mhm.
where they can actually do a digital print on a jersey, on a sports jersey, in
That's-
30 seconds.
Oh,
Okay,
that's
the
interesting.
best of machines across the world, including China, take at least 3 to 4 hours. They do it in 30 seconds because it's a multi-head thing. Okay?
Yeah.
Now these guys have the flexibility to, let's say there's a cycling community,
Yeah.
even in your building, 20
Yeah.
people.
Mhm.
So they say this is what we want.
Yeah.
It is taken up, digital printed, and given.
Fab.
So it's all tech. Okay, it's all tech. The other part of it which they are now struggling with is that while they are technically able to handle
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
if suppose I am the guy who's the leader of that cycling community,
How do I?
okay, how do I organize the payment
Yeah,
part?
how do
And I don't want to get bogged down
Yeah.
saying that was you go collect from money and all that. So
Yeah.
we are now helping them, and I think Rebel is also doing research on that part.
Right.
Okay, how do we make it easier for a complete seamless experience?
Yeah.
Right.
Expertise in one domain of technology with another
Yeah.
makes it a complete product, right?
It doesn't work on it.
Yeah.
Your customers operationally, you can have the best of processes. But
Right.
at the end of the day, if your customers can't reach you, you're stuck.
So three things of any engagement that you do with a customer at any level.
Right.
One, it should be easy.
Right.
Second, it should be cost effective, cheap.
100%.
And third, it should be fast. Because
Yeah.
one, customer is not going to wait for you, instant
Absolutely.
gratification. Okay. So Swiggy says 30 minutes and all that,
Right.
Amazon Prime,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah,
etc.
yeah. All of these.
Okay. Second, it can't be too complicated because then they will abide them. They're about this is too complicated. I was looking for a good user experience. This is taking me where I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And third, it has to be easy. Easy makes it repeatable. So what happens is that you are then increasing what we call as a customer lifetime value for you. Because today he's buying, let's say, a cycling jersey. Tomorrow he could be buying a sneaker.
Yeah.
So what you're really doing is trying to create a customer base asset for you, who you can then target for customer lifetime value.
Right. That's
In a positive way.
100%.
Yeah.
I
So I think coming on this next note, I'll take us through our next segment based on a similar story, actually, wherein it's a customer story segment again, but we're going to showcase one customer of ours in particular who had similar challenges that we pointed out. So I'll get them up over here to show everyone about these guys. They were really, really cool in what they were doing. And I think in terms of how they were operating also, it's a company by the name of Dr. Rest. So I don't know if you guys have come across them. They're really, really amazing manufacturers of pillows and cushions and manufacturing.
I've heard about them.
Yeah, so they basically, you might have seen them across on Amazon, and they were
Yeah.
having the similar thing, wherein they've got a phenomenal product. It's there on Amazon, it's selling, it's doing really well. All of a sudden, Amazon says there's a problem to reach them logistically, and the customers aren't able to reach them. And this problem persists for a little time, and they realize that, well, they're not getting any orders anymore, and they're not listed among the top 10 one on Amazon, and they're all of a sudden losing a lot of orders. And that's when you come to realize that if you don't have that data, right, and if you're relying on someone else or being, we understand. He, I think, realized that very soon that it's just that there were customers who were originally identified. It was a great place to market, build the brand and everything. But eventually it's moving towards getting your own identity. I think even with what you were discussing earlier with the sportswear group and everything, it's about having that store. And these guys have done it really, really well. So like I have used that product, and at the price points at which they're selling on Amazon, when they're doing direct to that brand, it's an absolute no-brainer. I mean, I woke up today with the best sleep because I slept on one of their pillows. I'm not even kidding. It's so great. Like, it's amazing. And it's so amazing. You can just go online, purchase it, all their products, everything. It's super easy, and they're manufacturing it. This was one of the challenges why they had to go through Amazon and all these guys, because they didn't know how to do it. But today there's so many amazing tools,
Right.
for logistics, to write down the fulfillment, and everything in the process is not that complicated. It starts small. I mean, this website is already taking so many orders. It's just been out shortly, as he's saying in the messaging here as well. It's not been on for that long, but it's amazing that how quickly you can get out in a week and already have your orders being shipped out. So from having the product ready to all of that, you can take any business traditionally overnight and just have it on the digital spectrum. So it's super easy to do that.
Just to add to that, I think every brand, like if you're not selling a commodity online, you should have your own website, right?
100%.
Because don't ever put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that the game on marketplaces is really just how much money you're spending on their
Right.
marketing tools. So it's important to have a greater sense of control, and at some point in time, you don't find yourself absolutely dumbfounded because now you don't know what to do because the one channel doesn't work. So I think for any business, because if it's so incredibly easy and so cheap, and the outlay is not that much, and it's easy for you to kind of manage, tinker, like add a product, change pricing, etc. I think it just gives you far better control.
Yeah.
And you kind of know where your customer is coming from. I think one of the issue with marketplaces is that while it gives you great volume, you really don't know too much more about your customer.
I mean, yeah, to summarize it, I feel that you need to own your customers at the end of the day. I
Absolutely.
mean,
Yeah.
through these channels, you can really get the access to reach out to your consumers and really communicate with them.
Absolutely, I agree.
In a very
And it's also
close way.
cost effective.
100%.
If you're promoting your own website,
Yeah.
the amount of money you spend and you compare it with the margins you
Yeah,
make with the trade,
Absolutely.
over a period, initially the spends would be higher, but over a
Right.
period of time, you realize that it's actually more cost effective.
Right.
And
It's
you own the
totally
customer.
ROI driven, so you can see the impact.
Yeah.
I mean, right there, like.
And you have a relationship, you can take feedback from your
Right.
consumer, you know exactly which way your business is going and where to
100%,
pivot. So I think even from not just from a marketing perspective, but from a business perspective, it's giving you far more information than
Product extensions
absolutely.
in the future and
100%.
whatnot.
Absolutely.
So we've got another second story to tell you guys also from our customer story segment, and this one is also a really interesting one that we have. It's a hospitality segment. It's part of Colossal Hospitality also, and it's one restaurant in particular there. So their entire group is also gone now and moved over
It's all
on
digital
this
now,
on the platform. And this one in particular, Epitome Global Dining. So Shrey, the founder, said a kind few words for us as well. But the entire idea is they've got a stunning presence for themselves online. So they have chains of restaurants which operate across in Bombay, a couple of them, another one in Dubai, and the entire thing is for them a challenge was having this global brand being built out, but in a way that it's still easily controlled and operated from here. That
Right.
entire ability to scale challenge globally, and in terms of how do you track customers, build data for each and every one independently, because you're talking to different customers in Dubai.
Absolutely.
You're talking to different customers here, you're talking to a different customer somewhere else. So building these separate data banks and all of these things, and having the ability. So in their case, they have their own digital team, and in the case earlier, there's no tech team. They're all doing it themselves. So the idea is that with the restaurant, there's so much happening every day, and if you're not being able to put that, and you're struggling, if you're going to rely on somebody else to do it for you, you're always going to be at a disadvantage. You cannot today, the way that the world is working, that we live in a time where everyone's going to pull out their phone every second they get, to search, to go online, to check it out. So at that point, you want to make sure that that control and agility remains with you. And I think with the example here is they upload the events weekly, they take their registrations for the events online, book events, all of the stuff happening. You get to, for them, it's supply chain people who are seeing what they're doing and being able to reach out to them, building a separate database of that, and having access to all of them, that when they're doing another event, they're doing a particular thing, they're able to actually reach back to all these people without trying to take a shot in the dark, like putting a massive ad somewhere outside.
Absolutely.
Because this is how effective it is. They're going and it's costing them nothing, more than what they're already paying for in the website.
And businesses like this are great from a moment marketing perspective, right? India wins a match, you do like a quick offer. You can do that right away on your website, but you can't otherwise do sit and plan a creative, tell 10 people, push it out.
So the more importantly, I feel that these people have realized that tech really plays an important role for them post the pandemic. Before the pandemic, all of these guys were really, really very happy doing the business. They're making money and everything.
They didn't know better, right?
Post the pandemic, they really very badly faced the challenge of getting online there, being visible to consumers out there, and at the same time, there were small things which were really needed for them to get certain things out there. So, in terms of getting their menu digital, the main problem for a few consumers for us who are in the hospitality. In the hospitality segment, really have a challenge in just uploading a menu out there on the web and making sure a consumer comes and scans that menu and actually views it. So there was a big challenge out there as well. And at the same time, in terms of also communicating with the customers at the right point of time, when they were really trying to make sure that the engagement was there, was something which was a really, really important thing. So I think this was a major challenge which was faced by them, and at the same time, they really very well shifted to this with the help of RebelCorp being a easy to use solution for them and managing it.
So I think when people visit a restaurant, it's such a misconception that you can only access a restaurant through Swiggy and Zomato, which is they show you what they want to show. So even every restaurant faces that problem with aggregators, the same way they do with Amazon and all the other guys also. You have to just figure out to make sure that even there, if you're there, because on Google, your .com, everything that's there is your digital identity, is your asset, you're building from there.
True.
So you can just easily kind of take control with all of the guys who are there. And I think we've got most of the things covered in from here as well for these guys, So it's awesome for the hospitality space, for how the people are building also. It's been quite phenomenal to see this right there. All right. So coming back to our last few bit of the segment, all right. And firstly, we're going to obviously take a moment to, kind of tell you guys, make a couple of quick announcements. One is that we are going to be launching our RebelCorp Academy very soon as well. So we have so the entire challenge, while we are doing what we're doing, right? It's about just get online and learn. Making it accessible for everyone is the most important
It's
thing.
actually a form of empowerment.
It is.
And reducing dependence.
And to be really quick with this is a manage it yourself course for you to actually manage your digital presence online. So this is where RebelCorp's Academy will plays a really important role for you to manage your full presence online.
And you're also demystifying technology.
Right.
So telling them that it's something you can do and handle yourself.
If you're a non-techie, you can handle it.
I've had a chance to go through what you guys do at RebelCorp, and I think that's interesting that you're doing this, because not only have I felt that this kind of empowers people who have just even small ideas but feel like it requires a lot to kind of get out there to kind of just start. I think that's important. And that it's as actually easy as using Instagram or Facebook, right? Like you just pick and choose and
upload
you're
and
done,
that's it.
right? And I think that's amazing. So I think the academy is going to help in a really huge way to kind of like diminish that sort of bridge, really bridge that gap and sort of that inertia that people have that, oh, I can't get onto digital, kind of tell them,
So-
show them how easy that is.
We're kind of looking at this entire thing centric around from the point of view that technology needs to be accessible to everyone today.
True.
And I think the main challenges come is learning that and being able to give this out, for all of our initial subscribers. For the first 6 months, they're going to be actually accessing the academy for free.
Okay.
There's no cost. So anyone who wants to learn, they're open to come and actually learn and just check it out. We have also now launching some new exciting partnerships with a lot of new agencies who are coming in and partnering to use our technology as well. So they are going to, we're not going to be, there are going to be a lot of people who will be able to kind of provide these services to their customers as well. And we're open to having more and more agencies, freelancers come open to work with us and use this technology and how it can benefit for their clients as well. I think, you all as consultants, as marketers will also agree that there is an ability when you get to do things easy. So that is one other thing that we would like to kind of highlight on. So everybody on the stream today, thank you so much for joining us, all our guests and everywhere. Their links will be there on this description later on and will be shared. But you can stay in touch, follow Ruchika and Naresh also, and stay tuned to us in case you like the event also. And do share if you found what you've heard very interestingly today. Look forward to seeing you guys on our next segment till we meet again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It's been
Thank you.
lovely to
See
be
you.
here. Thank you.
Thank you.